because lately I'm getting people come up to me and begin to talk to me about their lives. And most of these people are coming over because of their fascination about all the sports gear on my ute and how consistently I use it down at the local boat ramp in the local city there. And I think they're intrigued with my age and how active I am. And after the initial courtesies and questions, inevitably they go on to begin to share about their lives. And the last two that I've spoken to that have come up to me and questioned me about my life have talked about the loss of their relationships and the way in which life has worked against them by way of alcohol and drug abuse. Now, the thing that struck me yesterday with this man who's a businessman, and they seem to know everything about everything but never really get anywhere. They're always better than somebody else, or something rather is always going on with them. The man yesterday said that he will never, ever, ever give away his dope, his marijuana. And I thought, well, it's been your downfall. It's been your downfall for years. The woman that he was married to said she couldn't stand the presence of alcohol or marijuana on him anymore. She'd had enough and asked him to leave. And he couldn't understand why she wouldn't let him have the alcohol and drugs. He just could not comprehend why that would frustrate her. I mean, this is the mentality of these people. They become so focused on their addictions and habits. They become so obsessed in valuing things that absolutely are not an asset to their lives, that they lose the most important thing in their lives, the most important people in their lives. They lose trust, they lose faith, they lose the confidence of these people. They can't be trusted. And so I said to him, so-and-so, would you get in a 747 with a pilot that was on marijuana? And he goes, oh, no way. And I said to him, well, what makes you think your wife wants to be in a relationship with a drug head? That's why you lost your marriage. You made the drugs and alcohol more important than your partner. Now, I'd say she's tried to tolerate it. You've got children. But one way or another, she saw the waste, the way in which these things wasted you in your life. And you wouldn't listen. You had to have your cake and eat it too. And of course, then he started to talk about Jesus and the devil. And that element of things, and I didn't let on anything about how much I knew or the little I know about Christ. I just like to believe, and I want to believe, and Lord, help my unbelief. I claim to be able to add nothing or take away anything from what God promised us in Christ, so I just listened to the same construct that you usually get from these poor broken people. And I'm not saying they don't believe, and I don't know. I think if they do believe they're saved just like anybody else. They're no different than anybody else. But the damage that drugs and alcohol do to the minds of people, what they do to people, excuse me viewers, sorry, is so consistently and predictably destructive. And when you see people that know how to value and devalue things that are important and unimportant, hanging on, just hanging on to these drugs and things, these drugs and other things that they've just become accustomed to relying on for the sensations and temporary sensations and apparently immediate reliefs. And you just watch their countenance change, their face twists, their mind twists. As they get older, they age quicker. You really get no sense out of them at all. They're just addicts and alcoholics. And I'm sure they care about the people closest to them, but that doesn't mean that any of them are getting it right. They're just passing from generation to generation on these horrible habits and addictions and malign ways of thinking. All the depressions, anxieties, the sexual issues and addictions that come with all this stuff, the wrong thinking, the delusional thinking, the hypersensitive reactions, and the excessive periods of sleep that are only to sleep off the downside of the drugs. They've got no sleep pattern. And that was another thing. This man said that he couldn't sleep. I have to have the dope because I can't sleep. But what he doesn't realize is a lot of the time it's the dope that's causing the person not to sleep, because it's throwing out their time clock. They continually disrupt the time clock that works inside them. They're constantly decalibrating the way in which their mind and body works, and therefore it conflicts with their sleep. They can't sleep, so they take more, thinking that it's helping them to sleep, but they're actually just wearing out and going to sleep. Eventually the body just wears out, comes to a state of exhaustion, and gives them a certain element of sleep, but usually they lose all contact with a proper, healthy, recalibrating good sleep, because the mind and the body can't recalibrate if it's constantly up against substances and chemicals and all these other things that drugs and alcohol do to people. Body can't contend with that. It can't calibrate. It can't restore and renew the way that it should. It's got no way of knowing, because it keeps being disrupted, the pattern that it's supposed to keep. Drugs and alcohol turn all that upside down. So they're living in an uncalibrated, unrestful dimension. A demonized dimension. Exactly what demons want. So they can get in and turn everything upside down and continue to turn everything upside down. And hopefully someone will get sick, ill, die early, have an accident, cause an accident, kill themselves and other people with them as well. This is what drugs and how demons embrace these drugs to harm others. But nobody wants to talk about this. Oh, I got booked for DUI. That copper was a pig. No, he wasn't. He's just trying to save lives. They watch it all the time. They're the ones that go scrape up the bodies and pull bodies out of cars and suicide victims. These people see all the other side of what drugs and alcohol do. We don't want to pay any courtesy or thankfulness towards what they do to help our communities and societies to grow and go on. Oh no, they're just pigs. And that's the general narrative and way in which these people's lives go. They give themselves over. They never find their way out. Nothing really ever lasts for them, and if it does, it's a miracle, because they're not calibrated, they're not consistent. The only consistency they have is with their drugs, their habits, and their dysfunctional way of life. And if you can't keep up with that, nobody can be bothered with it, the toxicity of it all, then that's why these people end up on their own, alone, bent and twisted, delusional, sad, and depending on all the welfare benefits and other things after they lose their jobs and everything. I mean, a lot of these people can function. I don't know how. It's superhuman to me to think that people constantly drink and take drugs. I've seen them lose their jobs but bounce back. I don't know how. But then they get found out again, this person's an addict, this person's an alcoholic, and they lose their job again. Good jobs. They get found out, they're dangerous, they're not in their right mind, and they end up in a place of punishment, self-punishment, shame and guilt. Conscience is constantly beaten down by themselves and their actions. And it's a very unhappy, sad way of life.